In Japan, there are rivers and bridges, castles and temples, all bound to ancient legends. Among the darkest is the tale of the Hitobashira, the human pillar. When great structures were built in the old days, and when natural disasters threatened, some believed that sacrifice was the only way to appease the restless gods. A living person would be buried alive within the foundation of stone or wood, their spirit chained forever to ensure the building's strength. I never thought those stories mattered anymore, until I arrived in a small riverside town for a teaching post. The bridge was the first thing I noticed when the bus rolled in. It arched low over the current, its wooden frame blackened with age. At dusk, it looked less like a bridge and more like a ribcage, something pulled from the earth and left to harden. My landlady, an old woman with a voice like gravel, told me that the bridge had stood for 400 years. She said it had never fallen, not even in the great floods that swept away whole districts. She said it was because of the Hitobashira. I laughed nervously, as one does when the old speak of things the young are supposed to forget. She did not laugh back. That night, the rain came hard. The river swelled until it licked the underbelly of the planks. From my rented room, I heard something beneath the storm. Not water, not wind, but a low thrum, like a voice humming in the soil. I told myself it was the pipes. I told myself it was nothing. The next morning, I found the school quiet, the children staring at the swollen river. "Teacher," one of them whispered, "do you know about the girl under the bridge?" The others hushed him. He grinned in that way children do when they are half afraid and half proud. If you go at night and listen, you can hear her crying. They say she was buried alive to keep the bridge safe. That evening, the nurse from the local clinic invited me for tea. She had a scholarly face, and when I mentioned the legend, she set her cup down. "The records are old," she said, "but they say a young woman was chosen when the bridge was built. Her family was poor, her life disposable. They sealed her beneath the supports, still breathing. That is why the floods stop here. The bridge has its guardian." She looked out the window then, and her voice softened. But guardians grow tired too. The rain returned that week, heavier. At night, the humming came again, sharper. Now, a vibration that reached the bones of the house. Sometimes it carried a rhythm, a broken sob. I dreamed of soil filling a mouth, of fingernails clawing against wet wood. One night I could not resist. I walked to the bridge at midnight. The river ran thick, a black serpent twisting in moonlight. I leaned over the railing. At first, there was only water. Then, from beneath the planks, I heard it a voice, muffled but human, rising with the current. It did not speak words. It cried, stretched into a sound that seemed endless. My legs shook. I stepped back. On the far side of the bridge stood a girl in white, her hair dripping though the night was dry. Her face was blurred by shadow, but her lips moved with the cry I had just heard. She lifted her hand and pointed to the riverbed, to the stones that supported everything above. Then she was gone, the air closing as though nothing had been there at all. The next day, a section of the town collapsed into the river. No lives were lost, but homes crumbled. The bridge, however, remained. The people spoke softly in the market. Some said the guardian was restless, that her sacrifice had grown weary after centuries. Others said another life would be needed soon to renew the bond. I began to see her more often, in the school windows, across the courtyard, reflected in water jars, her mouth always open, her finger always pointing down. I stopped sleeping. My own breath seemed to echo her muffled cries. The nurse pressed an old book into my hands. Inside were sketches of bridges and castles, notes of rituals. One passage was marked, "When the spirit weakens, it will demand company." The structure stands not on wood, not on stone, but on the weight of the living. Deny it, and the river will take all. I thought of the landlady's eyes, the children's whispers, the nurse's careful warnings. I thought of the girl under the bridge, her lungs filled with soil, still bound to hold the flood back. And I wondered if, after 400 years, she was looking for release or for someone to share her burden. The rain has not stopped for days. The river climbs higher. Last night I dreamed I was standing in the water, stones pressing against my ribs, wood above me like a lid. When I woke, my chest ached, as if the river had already chosen. Tonight I hear her clearly. The voice is not muffled anymore. It is at the window calling my name. The bridge still stands, but I do not think it will hold unless someone answers. If you ever cross a river in Japan and see a bridge older than memory, stop and listen. If you hear crying beneath the planks, do not answer. Do not lean too close, because the legend is true. The bridge remembers, and the human pillar beneath it is still waiting.